I would like to just go ahead and kick this off. Welcome to the Artist as Storyteller Speaker Series, our second session. My name is Steph Hankinson, and I'm Humanities and Drama faculty at South Seattle College. It's my great pleasure to introduce our moderators for today's conversation with Haruko Crow Nishimura, the co-director of the Degenerate Art Ensemble. And before I introduce Paul, Amiko, and Felix, I want to tell you a little bit about the series. So the Artist as Storyteller Speaker Series was fueled by the desire to put BIPOC artists, performers, and activists directly into conversation with students and with the community to create a new space for human connection and celebrating creativity in all its forms. The series focuses on the art making and the storytelling process as it relates to the individual and a collective consciousness. And so our first season theme, as I've mentioned before in the spoiler, is adaptation, resiliency, and environmental justice in the time of COVID-19. So I'd like to welcome our student moderator, Felix Bosques Harima, and Felix is a musician and South Seattle College student of Japanese and Puerto Rican ancestry. He's been self-taught the guitar and he's played for 11 years. He has a musical focus ranging from acoustic fingerstyle to heavy metal. Felix is pursuing a degree in business and hopes to one day start up a record label focusing on the musical and creative development of underserved youths in the community. Felix, it's a delight to have you today.
It's good to be here, thank you.
Our first faculty moderator is Amiko Matsuo. Amiko joined the South Seattle College art faculty in fall 2020 with over a decade of teaching experience at Cal State University Channel Islands and Allen Hancock College. She taught the broadest range of art classes at these institutions. She has a passion for ceramics and has developed international travel courses to rural Japan, where students have learned from Japanese artists and fired traditional wood kilns. She's also a translator and a scholar of ceramic history. Hi, Amiko. And finally, Paul. Paul Kikuchi is a musician and educator of Japanese and European ancestry. His music ranges from drone and ambient soundscapes to works for traditional Japanese instruments. He draws inspiration from the exploration of personal and collective identities and the desire to build community. Paul leads the music department at South Seattle College, where he's committed to the decolonization of music curricula and the cultivation of lifelong connections to music. Paul has known Crow as a friend and collaborator for over a decade, and so this is a special sort of moment of celebrating their friendship and collaboratorship as well. On a personal note, I've followed Crow's work in Seattle over the past several years, and I'm pretty much at super fan levels of excitement for today's conversation. And so with that, I will turn it over to Paul. Thank you all so much.
Thanks so much, Steph, for the introduction. And can everyone hear me all right? At least the other panelists can give a nod. Thank you. Good. Well, I'm so excited to be here and to be in conversation with you, Crow, but also to be with my friend and colleague, Amiko Matsuo, and to be with South Seattle College student and musician, Felix Bosques Harima. So wonderful to be here with you all. And I just want to acknowledge before we start that this has been a challenging month. You know, the wave of anti-Asian hate and the horrible ways that has played out in the violent events this last month, I know for me personally just has been very emotional and very difficult. And to be honest, I've been really excited to be in community with you all. I think it's just feels very healing already to be able to be in this space with you, but also just to be coming together to celebrate Crow's work. Just seems so important and so vital at this time. So thank you for taking part in this, and also to our audience here today, thank you for being here with us as we celebrate Crow's work and as we are in community together. So to start off, I think I just want to talk a little bit about Crow's work and the Degenerate Art Ensemble. By the way, I'll be shortening the Degenerate Art Ensemble name to DAE in this conversation many times. So just a heads up for those of you who are unfamiliar with that acronym, that is talking about the Degenerate Art Ensemble when I say DAE. And, you know, when I moved back into the Seattle area in the early 2000s and became involved in the art and music scene, I pretty much immediately became aware of the Degenerate Art Ensemble. And at that time, I knew them mostly as an innovative rock band. And, but pretty quickly I started to see that they were much more than just a rock band, that they were putting on all kinds of super interesting, multifaceted performance works. And honestly, like back at that time, I was just mostly like inspired and a little bit intimidated, but just mostly inspired by the kind of punk rock DIY, like we're just going to do this huge scale project, even if we might not have a bunch of funding, but like we're doing it. And I think like that's something I've always appreciated so much, Crow, about you, but also just about the DAE in general, is just like doing this work because you obviously love it. You know, you wouldn't have been doing this work for 20 plus years if you didn't love it. And so I think like from the beginning, I have found your work inspiring to just keep doing projects and keep involved. But over the years, I think that all of us in the Seattle community have watched the DAE really blossom into an internationally renowned performance group and be putting on large scale works in festivals all over the world. And for you, Crow, to start really getting some very high level recognition from the Guggenheim Foundation, and just last year, the Arts Innovator Award from Artist Trust. And so I think like at this point, I was really thinking about it, and I just know for myself, I just kind of feel proud that like the DAE like came from our midst, right? Like came from Seattle. And I think a lot of us in the Seattle community and the Seattle arts community feel like, yeah, a sense of pride that we were part of your shows and attended these iconic shows you put on, and just were in your midst as you developed this work over the last 2 decades. So I just want to put that out there and thank you for your perseverance and just like continuing to make work over so many years. That's been so inspiring for all of us. So with that said, you know, before we dive into this conversation, I wanted to just remind our audience who's here with us today that the structure of this event will be in conversation together for the first half or so of the event. And then we'll be opening up the event to some questions from the audience that Felix will be fielding and relaying to Crow. So just a heads up that there will be a Q&A at the end of this event that you're able to ask Crow questions about her work. But the Q&A, I believe, is available now. So you don't need to hold your questions off until the end. So if you have a burning question for Crow as we are talking about the work, feel free to just type it in, and hopefully we'll be able to get to as many questions as we can at the end of the event. So Crow, welcome. How are you today?
Hi, Paul.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Felix, Amiko-san, Steph. I guess what a warm team of people and so welcoming. And I'm just so honored to be here to share the work. So, wow, I'm very excited. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for working with us as we dealt with those technical difficulties. And like, I was actually just thinking, like kind of laughing to myself, actually just thinking about how many performances I've done where like 5 minutes before the performance is starting, I'm trying to figure out a technical problem. And Crow, I kind of was thinking about you too, because knowing the DAE's work and how many like different moving parts your pieces usually have, I'm sure this like feeling of like right before the event starts and having to deal with technical difficulties, like you feel right at home, right?
Oh yeah, always. It's part of the game, isn't it?
It really is, totally.
Yeah.
So, you know, before we dive into conversation, I wanted to show a clip of the 2011 piece Red Shoes. So this is a Degenerate Art Ensemble piece that Crow, you directed. And I think that, you know, before we dive into conversation, I really wanted to give our audience a chance to experience one of your works, and that will hopefully give a lot of context to what we're going to be talking about. Just to preface the piece a little bit, we'll be talking about it more in detail. But just to preface it a little bit, I think that for our audience, as you take this in, this is one performance work, but I think you'll realize pretty quickly that the Degenerate Art Ensemble works on a number of different layers inside traditional performance venues and outside traditional venues. So for viewers, you might find yourself being like, wait, what's going on here? Like, I was in a theater and now like I'm on the street, what? But don't worry, we'll talk about it. And I think for right now, just take the piece in and it'll give us some really rich material to talk about with Crow. A short clip of Red Shoes from 2011. And Crow, I know that there's so much going on with this piece. And to kick us off too, I was really hoping that you could just give us your brief history of your work with the Degenerate Art Ensemble. I know that it's kind of crazy for me to ask that because it's a 20-year history, right? So, I don't expect you to go too in depth, but I think just giving us a little bit of backstory of like, what did we just see? How did your work evolve to Red Shoes, what we just saw, and how has it continued to evolve since then? So that's kind of the first thing I hope that you'll be able to talk to us about a little bit.
Sure. A little bit maybe just describe. I never actually really describe the name, why the name Degenerate Art Ensemble in interviews, but I feel like this is an appropriate time where that name came as an inspiration, first of all, before I talk about anything So in the 1930s, Nazi Germany, when the Adolf Hitler was in power, they did a huge exhibition called Entartete Kunst, or Degenerate Art. And it was basically mocking anything Jewish to anything from super imaginative like Cubists to Impressionists to anything avant-garde. The whole, like Paul Klee to Cézanne to Picasso, Max Ernst, Kandinsky, Chagall, I could go on and on. All these artists were exhibited as a mockery that it was anti-German, and it was it was not having the German ideal. It was not helping with that. So the exhibition started in Munich, and they did literally make the exhibition where there's graffiti all over the place and putting people in agony photographs and totally putting the painting upside down. It was this horrible thing, but there was a backlash where it became the most well-attended, beloved exhibition at that time. And so many people were starving to come see beautiful, exciting, imaginative art, and they had to shut it down because it was so popular. And that's when I felt, this was when the art itself had so much power, and it spoke for itself. So I wrote it down here. I got it from the Wikipedia. The ideal of German art under the Nazi was to only show the human ideal and not to show the struggle, the imperfection, suffering, or diversity. And so so my co-director Joshua Cole and I took this name to celebrate freedom of expression and celebrate the human spirit in all of its variations. So all of our work relates somehow through this, and so does Red Shoes. And this piece that you saw was and Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, and some of you might know. It's about a girl who's cursed to dance herself to death as a punishment for pursuing her desires. And she ultimately chooses to have her legs cut off to put a stop to her madness. And so this piece, I previously was dancing the entire year in public spaces unannounced because I was so devastated about what is the meaning of art at that time. And I was just producing without it felt like I lost my purpose. And there was so many encounters and non-encounters where people completely ignored me in the streets, dancing for hours, and sometimes in the rain. And then sometimes people were so kind, and so many love and compassion came from just dancing on the streets. The entire year I experienced everything. And that's where this 5-site specific, we reimagined this piece as shamanic journey of a creative person and a girl who struggles to fight for her creativity. And she goes through the artistic growing pains, emotional growth, becomes a warrior, and find herself reinvented and to begin again. And so it was 4 hours performance, and we did it every Thursday at that time. And collaboration included a church choir, a string quartet, marching band, and 150 volunteers. And what started this whole thing beautifully and successfully was, at that time, we were working with the Frye Art Museum where we had our exhibition. And the curator there was named Robin Held. And she was an incredibly collaborative, very passionate curator, which was very rare. And we all got together and we were very excited to have this 5-site audience journey. And we looked at the whole neighborhood around, it was First Hill, And around the museum, it was the perfect like fairy tale setting landscape. We were very excited. There was the St. James Cathedral. The fountain was beautiful by the museum. And there was an abandoned supermarket, which would be a perfect black box theater. And so, but there was the biggest challenge, and the whole museum staff was very worried, very anxious to do any outdoor activities at night, any nighttime performances. And so Paul, you know the first hill, right? By the way, it's like medical,
Yeah.
like over 65 clinics, medical facility, rehabs. So it's kind of a chaotic neighborhood. And I understood that then. It was very tricky because it was called the Pill Hill, and ambulances sometimes going everywhere. And so Robin gave us the opportunity to make our case to the entire staff of the museum. But so it was a little scary at the time. There were 40 people staff, and we had to convince them that what we would do would be something great. And previously, I actually went around the neighborhood and I met with one of the local residents, and I talked about our project and her whole apartment. She was so excited that she was like, oh my gosh, you guys have to do this. And she had her whole apartment building sign a petition to support it. And then Joshua, my other co-director, went to the monks' dormitory and talked to them, and at the music director at St. James, and they were so enthusiastic. And so I had some kind of courage to go to the staff. And so when we met with them, so Josh and I asked what is their concerns, and we asked for their input. We asked for their help, how we can come up with the solutions together to protect and guide the audience, the people around it. And we also brought conflict resolution people for every performance. But mostly we explained why this would be a great opportunity to bring life and safety to the streets, you know. And so the staff and so they all got really on board, and they brought their families, their friends, and we had over 150 volunteers. And so it became like, it felt like a village. So I feel like this is not just a DA piece. I felt like it was the whole collaboration with the curator, the volunteers, the security, the staff. I felt like it was such a warm experience. And when the staff members expressed joy and enthusiasm afterward, I learned that if you engage everyone you work with, and they don't have to just be artists, as a collaborators, they will feel that they have a stake in it, and they saw the benefit to the community, and that really changed me to how to collaborate in general, and it opened this piece. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Crow. Thank you. And yeah, it just makes me think about site-specific work, and it's so much more than just going to a site and creating a work, right? And when you talk about this, like going to talk to the monks and having a whole apartment building sign a petition, and like there's so much that goes into connecting with that site.
Yes, I learned a lot, and I'm still learning.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm going to turn it over now to Amiko, who can kind of continue asking you about this work and about collaboration, etc.
Great. Hello. It's so lovely to engage with your work today. Thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to preface our conversation by saying that I took the liberty of selecting some images to look at while we have continue this conversation. So please just allow me to do that, please. So I'm going to share my screen briefly. Okay, so then I wanted to lead our conversation a little bit more in the direction about form. And I just have found a quote about your work. It says that it's been described as being rooted in Japanese Buto dance, physical theater, and classical music. So for those of us that are encountering Buto for the first time, I was wondering if you could describe what Buto is for you, and also how it informs your work. I'm going to just show a few images here.
Let's see. First, let's see. So should I start talking? Sorry, it's my part.
I can add just a little bit more. I'm sorry. So
Okay.
maybe I should just say by expressing my appreciation for what I was able to see from your movement language. From the media clip that we just saw, we were able to see some movement, some grounded sort of stomping hand movements, some expressive facial expressions. So I thought I would just go over some of these again. And maybe just an extension of that question. I hope this isn't too much in one question. I'm greedy here. Does it matter for you what the audience knows or doesn't, or what sort of preparation they might have for encountering your work? So anyway, let's just go back to describing what Buto is for you and how it might inform your work, please.
So I'm just assuming people might have known, I mean, to describe Buto is almost impossible, but so I just say it's a dance, avant-garde dance that came from 1959, and it just keeps evolving and evolving. And for me, I do not perform Buto dance on my stage. My practice has been, the background has been Buto dance, and my master teachers, I still study with them over 20 years, every week. But when I create my own creations, I just dump that out at the doorstep of the rehearsal. And so my work hopefully is influenced and inspired by what I embody already in my body. But when I create my dances, it comes from a different place. But again, you will probably see some things that you see when you see a traditional Buto artist. Traditionally, they would have a white, maybe painted makeup, or I do not use that anymore. And sometimes like a long hair or a bald head. And the movements are sometimes, how do you say, distorted movements, convulsions, or sometimes people describe it slow, but it's not always slow. Some of the Seattle things you see may be slow movements a lot in the Seattle Buto scene, but there's a lot more than that. For me, when I engage with the audience, it's I think of it more than my movements. I hope that I can somehow connect, whether it's through my movements, through my vocalizations, through some maybe writing that comes out, some images. I hope to strive to find ways to connect viscerally. If that makes any sense, or if I've not answered your question, I'm sorry, but yes, that's my truth.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I was just thinking about like imagining you working and in the moment, just really focused on how to connect with the audience and what comes through. And I think for me, that might follow up into the next question that I have for you, which has to do with storytelling and what sort of stories that you're trying to tell through your work. Obviously, we've heard you talk a little bit about some of the themes that you've been thinking about recently with the reimagining of fairy tales, for example, and about confronting some of these challenges in fighting for creative expression, and also a little bit about healing. I also wanted to share with you that I am enamored by some of the symbols that you use in your work. So like the ones that stand out for me, your use of water. If I may, I just found a couple more images to share. Apologies, keep going back and forth here. So this is part of your Red Shoes performance. I found this photograph of a swan, and once again, that water. And
oh yeah.
This is from the Frye Museum where you are holding an object.
Oh, sorry, this is Underbelly, sorry.
Oh, apologies for that.
The dance called, was it Warrior or?
Warrior. Is that right?
I think it was the old woman dance. Sorry, it's all connected though, so it's all good. Yes, I'm an old woman in the water.
And then with this clip video still, and this image that I thought was also striking, just how you interact with these objects and symbols. If I could have you please elaborate a little bit more on how you are telling your stories through this work.
See, like the philosophy and themes are pretty simple for me, confronting or exploring darkness. And by navigating darkness, you find your own truth, and that truth kind of opens up a pathway or passages to acknowledgement, and that goes to acceptance, and then hopefully to transformation, and then you can heal. So that's been like a big theme throughout the DAE. And another one is championing the outsider, and to have great concern for people who feel they're not accepted by society is a big theme in all of the stories that you'll see in the projects. And I can speak for myself because I have been struggling with depression, and a very alienated person can have potential for greatness and potential for harm. And we need to, I believe that we need to support these people and nurture them in a way that helps them find meaning in their life. Some support that is not end up in destruction or self-destruction or destructive thing for others. So I explore these dark themes with humor, lightness, and beauty. And I love colors. So a lot of our stuff you see on stage is very colorful. And there's a lot of symbolism, Amiko-san, like you said, that I like to play with. And yeah, when there's objects, if I'm working with a object or set design, I explore the material kind of relentlessly. Almost you kind of have to be obsessed with the thing inside out. Sometimes like for months and months, like where I have to say, okay, I have to stop. But I love those explorations. And sometimes it's not always successful. And those explorations might just go, okay, it's something that it's just not quite fitting with the piece that it's going, even though it's something so beautiful. Sometimes I would just put it away but then it might come out years later in another piece to re-explore again with a new understanding of its material. Yeah. Let's see, kind of stories that has been in my pieces, the themes of rage and darkness, seemingly weak, finding power, going through enormous transformations, finding hidden powers, and that could be a positive thing or negative, and discovering your voice and finding again a new meaning of its power. The story examples I could give is like Predator Songstress was a piece I made 2015. It's a dystopian fairy tale about a girl who lived in a totalitarian state who found a way to rise up with her rebel army to broadcast the voices of the oppressed. the cuckoo crow, the one that you were just showing, Amiko-san, with the crazy deer legs, is told in a comic book style with projected animation. It's about a baby crow that survives. That's the one, yes, on the right. A baby crow that survives in the predatory world of the cuckoo brothers in the forest. And but she ends up outcasted and bullied, and she becomes this monster and burns the entire forest down. No, it's a little dark, but it's very, very comical as you see these cartoons projected on the little screen. We had to really make it extremely comical because it was an extremely dark theme. The red shoes, again, like I said, and skeleton flower, which I will explain next, they both explore many of these themes about discovering voices and going through transformations.
Awesome. Thank you, Crow. It's wonderful to hear you talk about your storytelling and talk about the themes that you're exploring. And you mentioned Skeleton Flower, which is one of your current works. And I wanted to make sure we had time to talk about Skeleton Flower. I first became aware of it, I believe it was 2018, when we were both doing a Arts in Nature festival. And I think you were doing some pretty early workshopping of Skeleton Flower. Mm-hmm. And as I recall, you were bringing groups of people together to share their traumas and talk about their traumas. And so and in reading a bit about the piece also, you write about how it's exploring collective trauma, but it's also exploring your own history and your own trauma through the piece.
I'm sorry, it's not collecting trauma, but it's actually, I put a call out to contribute stories of it's kind of a specifically a hero's journey. It is related to trauma, but wherever they were in their journey, that I wanted them to share their most difficult challenges of their life, and a commitment, if they have a stories of commitment, that they will move through these challenges and struggles they're facing, or they will face in the future, or maybe something through their ancestors that their ancestors were not able to face in their lifetime.
That's beautiful. So before, again, we have a video clip just short clip of Skeleton Flower, but I know, speaking of difficulties, right? The global pandemic struck as you were in the midst of performing this piece, and I'm imagining you had to put this piece on hold, and hopefully you'll be able to start performing again in the near future. But first, let's watch this short clip that shows some of the amazing imagery of the work, and then maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about what this journey has been with this work, and the challenges of trying to continue the work in the midst of a global pandemic as well.
I walk the hallways.
Gives me chills. That's the imagery, and the sound is just amazing, Crow. And so if you were able to talk to us a little bit more about this piece, and where it's at, and when we might be able to actually experience it too.
So it's my exploration, it's a semi-autobiographical exploration of my identity, depression, childhood trauma, and finding voice. And the piece finds power and awakenings by exploring my experiences with my abusive mother, who used to read me fairy tales as a child in my childhood. And that became clues to ultimately through creativity to confront my darkness. And it also deals with the assault that I experienced as an adult. And it became a catalyst for healing and awakening. And lastly, it's a whole piece is set as a commitment ceremony that confronts painful energy and tangled karma of my women ancestry. And it becomes an exorcism and a personal proclamation to untangle the karma and by choosing my own path consciously for my own life. So that's generally the piece summary. And yes, the piece got post. We did few that the Seattle premiere we was able to do, but then it got postponed for New York and Mexico City engagement. And I'm just very grateful that they're still able to do it this year, if all goes well. But yeah, I've been just keeping the practice like everyone else, and when the dance studios have shut down, I've been practicing in my yard and in my living room. So I'm keeping on.
Right on, wonderful. Well, I want to make sure that we leave time for our Q&A, that Felix will be leading off, and we'll be fielding some questions from our audience as well. So Felix, I'm going to turn it over to you now, and you can kick off the Q&A with, I think you have a question of your own for Crow, and then we'll see what the audience is thinking about and what questions they have as well.
All right, thanks, Paul. Hi, Crow. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Felix.
Just wanted to say that it's an honor to be able to talk to you. And I was watching your videos earlier too, and there's so much detail, and the amount of like theme and like how intricate it is just really impressive as a creator myself. And I think I wanted to ask about. I was reading the website for DAE, and there was a lot of it mentions how there's inspiration drawn from punk, comics, cinema, lots of sources, right? Yeah, I was curious, how do you interact with the environment, maybe like like a cultural environment or social environment? How do you interact with things and draw inspiration? Like how do you interact with that?
How do I interact? Can you rephrase the question a little simpler?
Oh yeah, sorry. How do you interact with the things around you, and where do you find inspiration in those things? Maybe, yeah.
I think everything. I know it's a broad answer, but everything that kind of speaks to me and speaks to my heart and intuition. And sometimes you don't know why this is calling to you. And it might be something unknowing too. Why is this? But if you just start probing or following without judgment, and all of a sudden there's like a whole amazing thing to discover. And of course, whatever you're obsessed at, I feel like I give full permission to myself to go further to find what that could be, what creatively.
I see. That's yeah. I can understand that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I had one more question. As with just like your performances are very I would say they're pretty long, spread out performances, right? Visual pieces. How do you like when you're making when you're planning out these performances, do you see the whole thing before it's made? No.
Oh no, not at all.
Oh, okay. So is it step by step, or how do you do it?
Oh yes. I do everything from one solo dance that could be 4 minutes to a whole great massive project that could have set design or collaborators or institution that I'm collaborating. But every time I just start with this one thing, and I mean, you hope to grow it big, but you just start, and I just start sharing. Like I'm not, I mean, you're a guitarist, right?
Oh yeah.
So you have performed in front of people, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I start sharing with the smallest circle around me, whatever I just started, and I start gaining confidence about, oh, this went well, this didn't go well. I don't believe in this like, oh, one premiere in the one big basket, put eggs in your basket and boom, I'm done. I feel like I grow with my audience and they follow me. So I like in the, not just the COVID era when I didn't get any funding, and that happens all the time. I asked my friend Walter's living room to be the space that I could have a performance space, and just through email, just have people come over and they'll see what I've been working on, which is a very simple thing. And it was suggested donation because artists have to have money. I'm not ashamed of asking for money. And so that helped me, like, because I bought some materials to make costumes, but because of the suggested donations, it was very helpful. And I do these little tiny performances leading up to as it grows to the premiere. And I've learned that to me it's much more helpful that way. I can never see a big picture and try to make it perfect. That would be so overwhelming. I would start sobbing. I would just see these performances that lead up and add more elements, maybe subtract, refine, define, refine, and getting the feedback to me is the most amazing gem. Not to be afraid of it and take it in. And that's, I hope I answered your question.
Oh, no, yeah, that's great.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great advice too, just for people who are trying to create, just getting feedback and then taking it step by step. Because the bigger picture can be overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We have a question from an audience member. Who person or organization has been an unlikely but successful collaboration for you?
Unlikely. Oh, but let's see. The Olsen Kundig Architects in Seattle. It's an architect company. I think they changed their name recently. But that was very exciting to work with architects. And we did a piece at the what is the 60th or 50th anniversary of the Seattle World's Fair, and we just did some crazy site-specific pieces there, and architects would come up with crazy visions, ideas that us artists would not have, and so that was a huge learning experience. And also working with Seattle's Path with Art. Have you guys heard of that? It's a incredible organization. You guys have to check them out. They're amazing. They're providing art classes for people recovering from homelessness and addiction and trauma. And they're like one of the most famous, successful organization for able to do that. And working with them and having them in the project called Predator Songstress, the participants, was such an honor for me.
What was the name of that organization again? The
Path with Art.
Pathway to Art. Okay, cool.
Path with Art. Sorry.
Oh, Path with Art. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll have to check them out. One more question. Have you ever experienced backlash or critical treatment from other artists?
Oh, all the time. Of course, yes, for sure. Even like to work with the Path with Art, when they first heard our name, Degenerate Art, like we do not want to associate that kind of negative name with we want to uplift the people. And then of course they met with us and they really, really loved our work and they trusted us with their amazing participants. But oh yes, and that is something very Joshua and I take it as a big humor, because it's sometimes when people underestimate you and then they find out, oh my gosh, this is it's actually such a delight to see that.
Yeah, that's funny. One more question too. What's the best way to keep up with your future projects, or what are some different ways we can support your art?
You mean in the COVID era, or just in general?
COVID or going into the future.
I just say keep producing work. Wait, the question is how do I keep supporting my art? Is that right?
Oh, like how, as like an audience, how would we keep, where would we follow? where would we see more like updates or stuff?
Oh wow, that's so cool. Thank you, Felix. Well, I just the websites is always have I have to update it, but have all the stuff and I guess our mailing list, it's on our Degenerate Art Ensemble website also. We keep informing people what we're up to. Yeah, and that would be the place.
So that would just be degenerateartensemble.com, right?
If you go there, I think our email is 2degenerates@gmail.com. It's on our contact, and we usually get them right away. So yeah, if you want to be on our mailing list, that's how you contact us.
All right. That's cool. Another question from an audience. When did you realize that being a performer and an artist was your calling or career?
Let's see, calling. Well, I'm kind of like how do you say, defected musician in my youth, and my mother wanted me to become a classical piano player, and I even tried going to 1 year of music school, and I said, this is not for me. And so it was a long period of, long story short, I had a huge depression, and in that the movements were born. And then, oh my God, movement is my language, but I also love vocalization. Oh my God, what should I do? But okay, I'll just keep doing it. And that was like in my 20s. And I just started collaborating with other artists, like-minded people. And that encouraged me to go, okay, this is what I want to always do in however form possible.
I see. That's inspiring too, because
Really?
Yeah, because like with music studies and stuff like that, the way it's presented most of the time is really intimidating, and if you really want to express yourself, it can be kind of a turnoff for some people. So just finding your own path is really just an inspiring way to go about doing that.
Yeah, there's always other ways. There's always other alternative ways, for sure.
For sure. Another question: what specific artists or media inspires your art?
Oh goodness. In the punk part, I was really into a lot of Japanese punk bands at that time. I can't remember, maybe Boredoms, The Ruins. I don't know, Paul, if you know any of you. I'm sure Melt Banana was a Japanese nursery teacher woman that screams, shut up! It's so beautiful and liberating. So punk bands a lot, and fashion designers like Alexander McQueen to Japanese Reikawa Kubo, who did Comme des Garçons. I mean, Takashi Murakami. There's so many ancient and new artists that are really like Yayoi Kusama, who does this crazy polka dots with colors, and anything that kind of shakes my vibration is an inspirational artist for me, and very visual, a lot of them too.
Thank you. Another question we have is, do you work with composers to create the music for your performances, or do you let the composers create their own pieces for your work?
I mean, it depends project by project by project. For DAE also, it's been, sometimes it's all Joshua's music, sometimes Joshua brings in another. It's like a massive big project. He has a collaborating composer comes in. I always chime in. When it has to do with vocals, I get to also collaborate in that sense. And when it's my movement too, like when sometimes a composition doesn't really fit a movement, and we try to work that together. So there's a lot of input from me as well. So it depends, but yes and yes.
Yes and yes, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Crow, for your generously answering all of the audience questions, and thank you, Felix, for fielding those questions and relaying them to Crow. And I think I want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to pass this back over to Steph to close out our event today. But I just wanted to thank you all for being in this space together and being in community together. And Crow, for you being so generous to share your work with us. So thank you.
Everybody, such incredible team. Oh my goodness.
Crow was so special and amazing to see your art and see the images and just get to share this space with you. So I feel very lucky. And we will be posting, just for everyone that's listening in, we'll be posting links to the Degenerate Art Ensemble website, the mailing list. You'll be able to access all of that on our website, on Crow's page at the artistastoryteller.com webpage. And so any chance you have to connect with Crow, to reach out and hear about what work is coming up, especially with, fingers crossed, the performances coming back online. I know we'll all be there supporting you soon. So I also wanted to share that, our conversations, our Artist as Storyteller series is continuing through June. Next up, we're very excited to welcome the freestyle beatboxer, children's book author, and chef Nicole Paris. This is happening on Tuesday, April 27th from 1 to 2 p.m. again. And we'll be talking with Nicole about how she developed her unique sound, her viral success of the online beatboxing sessions with her father, which some of you may have seen on late night television or on YouTube if you follow these sorts of things, and what it means to be recognized as a part of this sort of new crop of artists that are revitalizing and changing the face of hip hop. And so the Nicole Paris link, as well as more information about Crow and upcoming talks, can be found on our website, which is artistasstoryteller.com. And I'll also invite you to pop by the website to watch a recording of our last conversation several weeks ago with two local drag performers, Butalino Kipple and One, and that is posted on our website as well. All right, folks, thank you so much again. Thank you, Crow. Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Amiko. Thank you, Paul. And thanks to all of you that were resilient and adapted to join us here.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Crow.
Everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.